and welcome to the Code Clarity podcast. I'm Jean.
And I'm Rena. Today we're going to talk about calls. Now, calls is kind of a loaded word. It means sort of different things to different companies. But in the context of our discussion today, we're going to be talking about the interactions that sales representatives and key account managers make on healthcare professionals. So those are what we're talking about. So what do you think, Jean, is confusing to people out there?
So I think it's confusing the terminology that's used. I think that companies do talk about calls, and then they'll talk about, is it an unsolicited call or is it a solicited call? And then they talk about, MSLs doing calls as well. And that can all be very, very confusing. So I think it's helpful to think about how does the code define what an unsolicited call is, and then see how that applies to the actual activities.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So MSLs don't call. And also I think this word call hasn't really come from the law or any European code. So it sits in the UK code. So it's very hard to go and find another reference source. So how would you define unsolicited?
So unsolicited is when there's not been a request on the behalf of the HCP for you to go and see them. There's not a reason to follow up. So I think when the code talks about unsolicited calls, it's basically meaning those cold calls that, here I am, would you like to talk to me about it? And what the code says that everything else where you've agreed to go and see them because you're going to talk to them a bit further about the information, or you need to follow up on an adverse event reporting or whatever, that's a contact.
Okay, good. So I see the problems that occur, and it can either be through companies' poor language, but even CRM systems sometimes ask for a tick box, tick here if this is a contact or not. And that's very confusing if you're being trained on what a call is. I also saw the other week a rep contact a customer and say, can I see you? The customer said, no, come back tomorrow. And the rep considered that to be a solicited call. What do you think?
Because the initial one it's an unsolicited, isn't it? It's just arranging when that unsolicited is. So I would put that as unsolicited.
Even when you train them, right, you still have to go on give them some examples to make sure they really understand it.
Yeah,
not good enough.
That's a really good point, because I know that some companies are a little bit forgetful about the code requirements about when you're talking to your sales teams about calls and contacts, because the code actually says that every time that you are talking, so that will be at least annually when you're giving them their objectives, and perhaps more than that, maybe quarterly, when you're talking to the sales reps about their activities, the code does require that you remind them of what is an unsolicited call, what is a contact, and the fact that it can only be 3 unsolicited calls in the year.
Yeah, very true. Okay, I think there's a few cases about that one. Interestingly, in those cases, the complainant tends to be the rep themselves. So watch out there, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.